Nick Krauser here, and welcome to episode 6 of Womanizers Bible. Right then, I am sitting in an apartment here in Warsaw, overlooking Chemelnia, I believe it's called. Anyway, centre of Warsaw, and I'm having a good time. I'm in quite a good mood because things just went well. I'll not gloat, I'll not go into it, but anyway, I'm in a good mood. So I'm going to get back to this podcast and answer some reader questions. So my original post, which went up a good few weeks ago now, I got a lot of reader feedback, a lot of questions, and right now I'm going to pick up one from Ken. He asks, how best does one brush off the indignation of respectable society and instill a sense of entitlement to younger, hotter, tighter? Now, regular readers will know younger, hotter, tighter. What I mean by this, I actually picked up that term from Heartist's blog by a commenter called Good Books for Men, I believe he is. But anyway, a very entertaining, slightly crazy commenter on there. First came up with that younger, hotter, tighter. So what does that mean? I think that perfectly encapsulates what real game is. Like what separates game from merely getting laid. So, it counts as game if you're banging girls younger than you, hotter than you, and tighter, right? So, younger, obviously, we're looking at the ideal age range, which for me is between about 18 and 22 years old. But, it doesn't have to be quite that narrow a band. I'm 40 years old. Hotter, obviously, they have to be physically more attractive than you are. I mean, if the man is the one bringing good looks to the table, then that is like so fucked. That is pretty much an admission that you have no game whatsoever and are slumming it. And then tighter, well, here I mean chaste girls, like relatively chaste girls. Like banging a girl who's already had 50 dicks inside her isn't really that much of an achievement in my mind. Probably she's just picked you. And whereas banging a girl who's like a virgin or had a couple of guys before, that's a much bigger deal, like she hasn't been spreading herself around. Getting laid is still quite a big deal to her, and there's a lot of barriers to that process, and as far as I'm concerned, it's fucking awesome. So few things satisfy me more than knocking off a girl who is younger, hotter and tighter. And the reason I have such a spring in my step today is I just fucked a 19-year-old Belarusian girl, same day lay, within 2 hours, and she was young, hot and tight. Brilliant. Go me. Anyway, so to decode this question slightly further, sense of entitlement. I believe, Ken, you're talking about, you want to know, how do you feel you deserve it? How do you feel you deserve these girls, right? Like, I've never met you. If you look like Ken from Street Fighter, I'm sure you wouldn't be asking this question. God, I do go off on digressions. Anyway, who's my favourite character? Him and Sagat, because he had a really wide dragon punch. Anyway. Then sense of entitlement to younger, hotter, tighter. Now, I certainly used to feel when I was approaching hot girls that I didn't deserve them. I used to feel like I wasn't good enough, that there's no possible rational reason or indeed emotional reason why these girls would pick me. Why pick me, right? There's all these other guys out there who are cooler, taller, more muscular, more money, maybe even nicer personalities, or willing to bid up the price for them more by flying them out to Dubai and Los Angeles, or taking them out to like restaurants and holding their hands, walking down the beach, writing each other's names in the sand with their toes. Like I used to feel when I spoke to girls who are younger, hotter, tighter, that they must be fucking crazy for picking me, right? Why would they let me put my dick into them when they have so many better options? Like, that's how I used to feel. And if you go way back to 2009, maybe 2010 on my blog, there's a blog post, I think it's called I Number Close My First Perfect 10 or something like that. But anyway, I remember this when I was a proper little chode, wasn't getting laid off game yet. I spoke to a hottie who was I was on my lunch break. This is back when I had a real job. I was on my lunch break. I was just trying to cram in a couple of number closes. And this really, really hot English girl, she actually looked quite Spanish. Well, past the chat up, I thought she was a 10, but admittedly, that's back when I didn't really know what a 10 looked like because I'd never been to Russia or Serbia. But, by English standards, smoking hot. And I literally couldn't hold eye contact with her. I was like looking at the floor and I was like stammering. I felt like my head was going to like burst. It was going so hot, getting so hot. God knows how bad that set looked like, If I'd put up an infield, I would have been absolutely ridiculed and deserved it. Now, there's nothing special about this girl. She was about 22 years old, worked as a receptionist or secretary in some tiny little business where the owner was obviously trying to fuck her, maybe successfully. She actually told me that her hero was Kim Kardashian, which would very much be a strikeout these days. And I ended up getting her to some sort of fashion party, which I had a hand in organising. I got a free ticket, and she just basically milked me for the ticket and whatever. Anyway, I deserved it. My stupid fault, right? I didn't filter her properly. But anyway, moral of the story is really hot, and I just couldn't even look her in the eye when I was trying to pick her up. Never mind actually escalate and try and fuck her. So I had a number, didn't go anywhere. Now, how times change, but it's very easy to learn technical things, but something like that's very basic in a game issue. There is no technical fix to that, right? You can't just say, speak slower or breathe deeper or, stand straighter. That's not going to fix an entitlement issue like that. I'll tell you another entitlement issue I used to have around the same time is I couldn't look girls in the eye when I was walking down the street. So I'd actually remember very vividly walking around St. Paul's, which is part of the finance district in London. It's like the southwest end of the finance district where I used to work. And I used to often get lunch in or around the St. Paul's Cathedral, sit on the steps with my colleagues and stuff and eat a pret a manger sandwich. So, this was back when I was really hyper about day game and it was all so exciting and unreal and nothing was really sticking, but I was getting a bunch of flaky numbers, the occasional date to nowhere. So I remember walking around and I was seeing these girls go past, and I'd read on the internet how I was supposed to carry my body language and I was supposed to have my chin up and my eyes straight and have a slight smile on my eyes. And I just couldn't do it. I would see hot girls walk past, admittedly not many of them because it was finance district, but I had lower standards then. So I would walk along and I'd be trying to keep my chin up and my chest out and my shoulders back, and pretty girls would come and instinctively, absolutely instinctively, it wasn't a conscious process, anytime there was a girl I fancied, I'd immediately look away. I'd look off to the side or down because I felt it was just somehow impolite to stare at them. It was like leching, or it was creepy, or it was sex pesting or whatever. But I actually just felt that if I look at this girl and check her out, look her in the eye or look at her body or whatever, kind of close enough that she could see that I'm doing it, kind of somehow taking value from her or I'm making her uncomfortable. Now, I think this is something that beta males get trained into. I think your whole life as a beta male, you're told you shouldn't talk to women, right? You're shamed. You see those street harassment videos going up now by those feminists and stuff. There's a big shaming exercise for beta males. And the reason for this is beta males have to know their place. It's only the alphas and the sigmas who are allowed to do what they want. The betas are the workhorses of society, so they must know their role. And if they try and pop their head up above the parapet, they get smashed back down. Now that's the downside of being a beta male. And it's why so much pickup community stuff talks about the sociosexual hierarchy and why, if you're an extrovert, you should try to become alpha, and if you're an introvert, you should try to become sigma. Because once you can congruently occupy that position in the hierarchy, you're basically relieved of the need to follow any rules. So at this time when I was doing game, I didn't understand that back 2009, 2010, and I was very much beta. Pretty weak beta as well. So I was constantly feeling this pressure of my upbringing of know your role, don't be a pest, you're not the guy who gets to fuck the hot girls, so don't even stare at them, that's harassment, look the other way. I was feeling this weight on my shoulders. And it took a while for me to identify what that weight was, why I was instinctively looking away from these girls. So it was partly social pressure, and then it was also partly self-worth. I just didn't feel like I deserved these girls. And that's why at the beginning I was quite drawn to the sort of mystery method, Ross Jeffries type of thing, because that promises you a way of like sneaking your way into these girls' vaginas without them knowing about it and without having to deserve them, right? Because it's the secret code that gets you in. So anybody who feels a lack of entitlement towards girls is probably going to encounter these sorts of issues. And what's strange is now I'm like the opposite. Now I was just walking down the street with Tom today, and I was like belligerently walking down the street, staring girls down, chuckling, smirking, doing double takes, checking out the legs and stuff, because I'm no longer in that position. I've gone to, I suppose, let's just call it Sigma. I'm much closer to Sigma than I am to Alpha, and I'm just allowed to do that, and girls don't mind. So now I can talk to girls, and even when they're married, I can just say things to them like, well, look, it's a shame you're married, otherwise I'd be trying hard to seduce you. And they giggle, right? They don't try and put me back in my place, because I'm no longer that guy who needs to be put back in his place. And they get it. Instinctively, girls get this. So that's why you'll often see the better day gamers appear to have this massive kind of social freedom. And they get these responses which you look at, maybe if you're quite a beginner, and you think like, I can't get those responses. And I don't mean like the street kiss closes and the bounce backs. I don't mean the kind of escalation, like set progression responses. What I mean is the actual character and quality of girls' responses, where the better day gamers can very belligerently and with outrageous audacity say and do things with girls and get positive responses. Even if it's a no in terms of number close, I date fucking, it's just a positive response of the girls like giggling and laughing and saying, look, no, I can't, I got a boyfriend. And I'll say to her, well, I'm not the boyfriend type, this is supposed to be a secret. And she'll laugh, right? Like, she's not thinking, ooh, you dirty cunt, ooh, you pest, like, can't you take, no, you're a harasser. She's like laughing because she's put me in this box. Like, she's not going to call it Sigma, obviously she didn't know, but she's put me in whatever, the bad boy box, the box of the guy who's allowed to get away with this stuff. So that's what happens when you feel entitled and you're congruent. So let's talk a bit more of maybe how to get there. So, key point Ken brought up is indignation of respectable society. Well, what is respectable society, and why would you want to be a part of it, and why would you fear their indignation? So again, it gets back to this beta box thing. Not beatbox, beta box. So what betas really, really want is approval, right? Essentially, I don't know what Freud would make of it, but I think it's basically they want their dad to pat them on the back and say, well done, son, you're a good man, you've made me proud. I think that's kind of what betas want, and writ large upon society, they want the respect of society, right? They want recognition. They want to be promoted at work for a job well done. They want their boss to give them a knowing nod of like, I know you did a good job there, mate. They want people to like them. They want girls to say, oh yeah, he's a good guy, he's a good man. And that's like respectability, right? This pillar of the community type stuff. And that's just normal. But the problem is the pillar of the community doesn't fuck the birds, right? If you are in respectable society and known correctly as being a respectable member of society, you are simply not going to fuck younger, hotter, tighter. If you're very, very lucky, you'll get one of them and you'll marry her. That's it. And I'll still fuck her when you're not looking. So you've really got to get rid of this idea of being part of respectable society. And indignation, well, you've got to just not give a shit. So let's try and break that down a little bit theoretically on how you can get there. So first of all, I strongly suggest you read Ayn Rand, especially The Fountainhead, but Atlas Shrugged's also good about this. The very good bit in Atlas Shrugged is the story arc for Hank Rearden. Now, Hank Rearden is a classic patriarch character. He's a steel entrepreneur who runs a massive steel business, Rearden Steel, very successful, and a lot of the story is about his business coming under attack from all sides, from the government and from his own family. And the big thing about Hank Rearden, and why the book has such a strong emotional payoff for his story arc, is Hank Rearden is the classic put upon beta, higher beta, who then becomes alpha, is the story. He's got a lot of natural alpha tendencies, but he's constantly put in a cage. He has this feeling like he's this tiger who ought to be like roaming the jungle, but he's for some reason managed to find himself in a cage, and then like all the chimpanzees around him are just like flinging shit at him and stuff, and there's nothing he can do about it. And then in the end he comes out the cage and just like goes off and does his own thing. So a lot of this book you'll see scenes where he's at, say, a family dinner. So it's a family dinner where he's bought the house, really nice rich house. He's the owner of this big steel company. He's put good food on the plates. All of his family have a life of leisure to indulge themselves in their parties and their dinners and their art galleries and their charities and so on, all done off the back of his money. And yet they constantly snipe at him. They're constantly trying to undercut his self-worth, his self-esteem, constantly being mean to him, constantly trying to devalue everything he does and invert the values in a Nietzschean sense where strong becomes weak and weak becomes strong. And the whole purpose of this is to hamstring him, right? It's to hobble him, right? It's like what they used to do with slaves in the old days, right? You cut their Achilles tendon so they can't run away. So the whole purpose is these parasites are feeding off him, and they have to keep him down in order to continue to feed off him. And in order for them to feel superior about it, as parasites, they have to invert the values to make good evil and evil good. So then what happens later in the story, I don't want to spoil the plot too much, but basically he manages to free himself. And the main way he frees himself is as simple as not giving a shit. He suddenly just thinks, hang on, I'm the value here. You guys are just fucking parasites. If I can shake you guys off and do what I really want to do with myself, I can fly free. And that's what happens. And there's a couple of really good scenes in it, especially the court scene when the government takes him to court trying to steal his business, and he just refuses to have it. So I don't want to spoil the plot for you, but Ayn Rand, Atlas Shrugged, the Hank Rearden story arc. I mean, the book's brilliant for many, many different reasons, but that particular story arc is a really good example of a guy who desperately wanted to be the pillar of the community, respectable society guy, did it, got screwed over, and then just thought, fuck it, and gives you a very strong moral case for doing it. So, if you want to feel entitled and shake off the indignation of Respectable Society, try reading that. Fountainhead's good as well, because the whole Howard Rourke arc is quite similar. Now, one of Ayn Rand's good ideas is she distinguishes between being a first-hander and a second-hander. So what she means by this is essentially, do you live your life through your own actions and your own thoughts, in which case you're a first-hander, or do you live it mediated through others, i.e. a second-hander? So to put it in a fairly crude manner, a first-hander does things himself, a second-hander watches other people do it. You know, first-hander sees the story unfold, the second-hander gets told about it later. So if you're a day gamer, or indeed night gamer, you tend to be a first-hander, and the more that you are a first-hander, the more powerful your frame. Now, a lot of the subtleties I picked up in this were from Steve Jabber, who's very, very much a first-hander. He's got an incredibly strong belief in what he sees with his own eyes, with his own ears, with his own touch, everything through his senses. He will only accept it directly, and then he makes his own mind up about it. That's classic first-hander behavior. And there's a lot about this in Primal Seduction, a little bit of an upsell there, where we go into Steve's mindset and what that entails. Now, you can get that yourself by going out and doing day game. Don't watch the YouTube videos of other people doing it. Don't even read my fucking books. You go out onto the street and you live life yourself. You see what happens when you talk to the girls. You collect the information with your own eyes, your own ears. put out your compliance tests, get the feedback from them, and then you're getting very, very pure, direct, at the coal face information. You're living it, right? You're living it with every fibre of your being, and that means you learn your lessons fast and you learn them accurately. There's no substitute for that, right? No amount of reading or watching other guys do will get you there. You have to do that yourself. You have to live this firsthand. So, I'll give you another example of that. I remember when I was a kid, I was a bit of a weird kid, but I remember when I was like, I don't know, 12, 13-year-old, a lot of my friends at school started going to watch the football match, right? Newcastle United and Aussie Ardelis at the time, I remember, back when they were really shit. Then they got good and now they're shit again. So anyway, they were all like dead excited to go to the match, and they'd get the Newcastle shirts, put them on. They'd have like the name of whoever was popular on the back of the shirt. I think it was Mickey Quinn at the time, or Mirandina, people like that. And they'd go off to the match. And they took great pleasure of being in the pack, right? Being in the group. They all dressed the same, right? With these tops on. They all went to big packs, sang their football songs, like literally singing the same words in unison. They'd be in the stands. This is back before Hillsborough and the all-seater stadiums. They'd be in the stands with other people dressed exactly the same, singing exactly the same thing. There was this kind of pack mentality, but it wasn't like wolf pack. It was more like a herd of sheep. And I just instinctively disliked this. I instinctively thought, I don't want to just be one of those sheep. And then I was also thinking, is when people ask me, what sport do you like? I always reply, the sports I do, not the sports I watch. Right? So someone says, do you like football? I'll be like, nah, not really, I don't do it. But if they say, do you like boxing? I'm like, yes, because I did it, right? Okay, I don't do it anymore, but I did. I had some fights. And there's this idea for me that I don't want to be watching and cheerleading someone else living the dream. I want to be living the dream, right? I don't want to watch and cheerlead other guys fucking hot girls. I want to be the guy fucking hot girls. So I don't want to go to a football match and watch other guys play football and score goals, right? I'm either going to be the guy trying to score the goals, or I'm going to be elsewhere doing something else. So I was actually in Japan during the World Cup and I turned down tickets for the final. I just didn't give a shit. Didn't give a shit. Why would I just go and watch it, right? It's like, why would I go to a rock concert just to stand in the crowd, pumping up the social proof and buying temperature for the guys on stage just so they can fuck the girls, right? Why would I be a part of that? But a beta male would, right? A beta male would do that. A beta male sees himself as part of the team, part of a group effort where the rewards accrue to the top guys. But I'm thinking, there's no fucking way I would go to a rock concert, take like my girlfriend, or go in a big group that includes girls, just so that we can then basically hand over the girls to the rock stars. That's fucking mental, right? Let them get their own girls. But this is what respectable society gives you. This is what being a second-hander gives you, is you're not going to be the guy on the pitch. You're going to be the guy in the audience wearing a t-shirt with that guy's name on your back, right? And which one of those positions is going to get you the girls, right? So I think you have to wrench yourself out of this respectable society fitting in thing, and you've got to become more of an outlaw. You've got to treat yourself as an outlaw, not literally, but you want to feel some sort of kinship with the Billy the Kids, the Jesse Jameses, right? With the biker gangs, with the con artists, the card shops, the hardball detectives, the guys who do the heist, right? It's like, if you can start feeling yourself, let's say you hear about some amazing robbery, right? Like some big like jewel heist or something. If you find yourself like nodding, thinking like, well done, lads. I mean, you might want them caught, right? It's a crime and stuff, but you can't help but grudgingly admire them for like the balls of it, the audacity of it, the thinking outside the box. That's the kind of mindset that you want as a day gamer. You're an outlaw. You're taking what doesn't really belong to you. You're taking more than your fair share, right? You're stealing somebody else's lunch money, right? I mean, you're literally stealing their girls. Even if those girls are single, you're accumulating notches, right? They've only got so many notches they're going to give out, and you're accumulating more than your fair share of them, right? So you're an outlaw. So I think I might be getting ahead of my notes here. So no, let's just go into this a bit more then. Okay. So at first, if you're going to wrench yourself out of respectable society, right, you're going to turn your back on becoming a pillar of the community. You're going to allow other people to be indignant if they want to be indignant and just shrug them off. Then at first that's bleak, right? You've got to kill the nice guy. You're basically willingly walking the plank, right? You're willingly stepping out of the tribe, going off on your own. Now, that tribe was never doing you any good in the first place. And of course, in modern society, it's not like you're literally going to the wilderness, right? You still get all the advantages of those beta males sitting in the offices, creating wealth and paying taxes, right? You still get all that. But you've got to think, I'm not one of these guys, right? I'm not fitting in my little box. I'm going to pull myself out of the matrix. I'm going to go to Zion, you know? Like, kill that nice guy. Stop feeding the system. Stop paying the taxes. So one way of doing that is to really revel in this outlaw vibe, right? Revel in the Ocean's 11 heist vibe, you know, the hustling, the card sharping, the con men, the badger game, you know. Start reveling in that. So how do you revel in that? Well, actually, literally just start consuming the media. You know, watch some heist movies, watch Ocean's 11, watch that Focus movie with Will Smith in, you know, watch The Sting, all of these like hustle type movies, watch them, right? Get into them. Start to think like, yeah, that fucking character's cool, you know, watch Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, you know, watch Robert Redford when he's playing the poker games, you know, like start to enjoy how cool it is, right? Another one I'd recommend if you like it is read hard-boiled detective fiction. I'm talking about like Raymond Chandler, Dashiell Hammett, stuff like this, because they're absolutely stocked with Sigma characters who live outside the matrix. But what they also have is all the criminals and side characters are also outside the matrix. Now they're black hat guys, you know, they often do dodgy shit, but it's this whole seedy underbelly. Everybody's on the make, everybody's out for something, nothing's quite face value, everyone's got an angle, everyone's got a game. It's that vibe is what we're trying to capture, right? That there's this whole secret underbelly that's outside of the 9-to-5 office, pay your taxes, mow the lawn, like watch TV type stuff. So revel in that. Hardboiled fiction's excellent for that. Personally, I read the Hard Case Crime series, which is a series of about 100 paperbacks now. They release one a month, and it's a very good collection. I've read probably 3/4 of them. You know, other things, start learning about these hustlers, right? Like, I remember my brother got me a book for my birthday called How to Cheat at Cards. It's like a 1970s guidebook on how to bottom deal, top deal, and all the hustles. Now, I never practiced it. It looks like a hell of a lot of hard work, but it was really interesting just thinking about these card shops and what they do, you know, and then go and watch Rounders, you know, watch the, what characters, I think it's the Ed Norton character. Not, the Matt Damon character plays it square, is a good player, but the other guy does like bottom dealing and stuff. Yeah, learn the cons, right? Read Eric Byrne, the games people play. Read up on actual cons like Three Card Monte and so on. There's a good TV show that was on BBC called The Real Hustle, where you had a bunch of con men would actually do a documentary, like they'd actually reproduce street cons for the camera with the BBC cameras on them and actually con people live and then explain how they did it. That's quite good. And there's an actual fiction show called The Hustle, which is also on BBC, which is a narrative version of the same thing, but with like proper actors. You know, learn things like the badger game, right? The badger game is when it's like a honey trap, where a hot girl will allow a man to seduce her precisely so that once they're in the bedroom, the like angry husband comes home, catches them, and then that allows them to extort the guy. Read spy books. I've been reading John le Carre, that's probably pronounced wrong, and Len Deighton. He did the London, Berlin, Mexico trilogy. You know, stuff like Tinker Tailor Soldier Sailor, or watch movies like that Robert Redford, Brad Pitt one, Spy Game. Like, watch stuff which is, what I'm getting at here is where things are not what they seem, right? It's people living outside of the normality. It's people you can't take at face value. It's people who read subcommunication. It's people involved in the underbelly in all its different permutations, right? Immerse yourself in the outsiders, right? Sons of Anarchy, the TV show, is another one of that, about an outlaw biker gang, right? So what you do when you do this is you're kind of living and breathing the outlaw vibe. You're living and breathing the people who are outside of respectable society, the people who don't care about the indignation of it, and it just makes it feel a little bit more normal. So that's a little cultural way of doing it. What else? Well, you have to accept that day game is a solo journey, right? The player's journey is solo. I mean, you have colleagues, you have acquaintances, right? You have like fellow heisters, right? The other day gamers. But ultimately, it's all on you, both the ups and the downs. We call it the emotional roller coaster. And one of the reasons why day game really feels like living, you feel really alive when you do it and get your flow, is you get these ups and downs. They're very extreme, and it's all on you, right? Like you can take full credit for the ups, and you have to take full responsibility for the downs. So today was a good example of that for me. Met up with Tom, had a coffee, then he had to go off with the students, so I started doing solo day game. About my third set of the day was an eye date with this really hot 17-year-old with D-cup tits, she said. Really, really hot girl. It seemed a bit too easy, but, I bounced her for the eye date. She seemed super on, so basically walked her pretty much after an hour, walked her back to my flat, seemed really on, and then she starts asking me for money. Very weird. So in the end I had to throw her out, but she seems to have had her own hustle, which is very unusual for a 17-year-old girl. But anyway, it was really weird. So if you think of like the emotional roller coaster on that set alone, there was the little bit of approach anxiety because it was early in the day when I first started talking to her, the relief of when she's really keen and hits hook point, the little bit of the leap of faith when I invite her on the eye date, her getting progressively more into me and complimenting me, so me thinking, oh, this is going fucking awesome, I might fuck this girl. Realizing how hot she was when I first got a proper look at her tits when she stretched to take her coat off, and then then just the excitement, the exhilaration of, am I going to get her home? Am I going to fuck this girl? Or am I just going to make a mess of it? And then, this building kind of fun of getting her all the way up to the flat, that moment outside the door when I said to her, I was like, look, let's get a couple of beers from that kiosk and we'll go upstairs. And she's like, yeah. Getting her to sit next to me on the sofa. She's going out and having a cigarette. And then, of course, ultimately the down of her, she's saying, oh, I'm not a prostitute, but you got to pay money to kiss me. And I was like, oh, fucking hell. And then I had to take the responsibility of saying, look, no, that doesn't happen. I'm going to have to allow a really hot 17-year-old to walk out of my door because there's no way I'm fucking paying for it. And then she goes, and I'm like, oh, fucking hell. Right? I'm sitting on my sofa thinking, oh, for fuck's sake, why does this happen to me, So then I go back downstairs, I bump into Tom and a student again, and I'm raging, I'm like, oh, fuck the world. And he's like, oh, you gotta let it roll off you. And then literally within an hour, I open a girl in a shopping mall who's just standing texting, goes really well, eye date, get her to a bar, get her into the house, 0 LMR on a fucker, right? This 19-year-old girl. So now I'm way back up again. So there was this crazy emotional roller coaster, and at every moment it was all on me, right? There was every single thing required me to initiate, me to be proactive, me to push it, and I can take full credit for the lay. So when I was fucking her, I was looking down at her, bouncing around on the end of my dick. I was like, this is good, Nick, you've earned this, well done. If there'd been a mirror, I would have pulled poses and fist pumped in it. I was really happy with that. But the down, that little 17-year-old walking off, that was on me as well. So it's a solo journey, right? No one's holding your hand when you do that. It's like when you're boxing, right? It doesn't matter how many people are in your gym helping you, what your coach does. At that moment when you step through the ropes to fight, it's just you. It's just you and it's all on you. And that is exhilarating. That's what makes you a first-hander. That's what makes it come alive. So rather than trying to nullify these ups and downs, rather than trying to be all zen, I think you just have to embrace them. You have to say, look, it's a solo journey. It's all on me. I'm going to live life. I'm not going to spectate it. I'm going to live it. And if that seems hard, well, just think the alternative, right? I mean, do you really want to be in respectable society, right? Think about the taxes you pay when you go to the office, right? Think about that underground commuter train that you have to fucking be squashed in out with all the fatties around you breathing there like fat germs on you, It's, there's just been an election in England, general election. I'm recording this at a point where I don't know who's won. And, but every single one of the parties is just a thief, right? I think it was H.L. Mencken said that every election is just like an advance auction in stolen goods, right? So what we've got is a bunch of thieves arguing about who's going to steal from me and how much, right? Fuck them, fuck a lot of them, right? I don't want any part of that respectable society. If they're indignant, so what? I'll kick them in the nuts, right? I don't give a shit. Right? Look around, think, how much have you ever really been helped by anyone who's not your friend or family? Right, now, I don't mean like the world's shit. I just mean, but really, people don't have your interests at heart, you know? The only person who puts your interests front and centre is yourself, right? Not even your mum. Not even your mum has fully unconditional love for you. Right? You just have to accept this, right? And it's a bit bleak, but these people aren't your friends, right? Society around, everyone's trying to get by. Most of them don't have any hostile intent to you, you know? They're not trying to fuck you over or anything. But they're not going to just be giving up a slice of the pie to you, right? Guys aren't just going to walk up to you and say, look, mate, do you want to fuck my hot girlfriend, right? If you want to fuck his hot girlfriend, you got to do it when he's not looking and it's all on you, right? No one's going to come up to you like from the government and say, look, actually, we don't really require you to pay any tax. Why don't you just take it all back and spend it on yourself, right? None of these people are doing you a favour, right? Respectable society is not doing you a favour. I mean, okay, there's a certain base level of civilization which is good for everyone, but fucking hell, do you pay for it, right? Do you pay for it? Now, I'm not going to go into any of my like more unpopular political views on this. If you want those, you can go to my Twitter. But there are plenty of reasons why I believe I'm outside of respectable society, and I don't give a shit. I absolutely don't give a shit. You know, if I'm at a dinner party and some girl or some fucking dude starts like jawboning about, Nick, like, you should, why do you have to have sex with all these 20-year-old girls? Isn't it time you grew up, you know? Why don't you just get married, be respectable? I'd be looking like, fuck that, you know? I'm having fun, I'm enjoying it, I get what I want. So Ken, to get back to your question, I'll repeat it. How best does one brush off the indignation of respectable society and instill a sense of entitlement to younger, hotter, tighter? Well, I hope I've given you a few ideas on that. It's a little bit of a hodgepodge, but there you go. A couple of other things I'd say is never put another man's judgment above yours. Right? Don't let someone else bullshit you into believing something that doesn't feel right. Consider MPAI. Most people are idiots, right? They really are, right? Look at which music's top of the charts, right? Look at which video games are top of the charts, right? Look at what's on daytime TV. Look at how much money Oprah Winfrey has, you know? Most people are idiots, right? Now, that doesn't mean they're bad people. It doesn't mean you should be mean to them, but it does mean you shouldn't really pay attention to what they think, right? I mean, don't go around trying to hurt them or anything, but their opinions, they don't matter. Don't mean a damn thing. And also, don't think that you have to be in respectable society to get the respectable girls either, because the girls are not respectable, right? Good girls do. A good girl is just a bad girl who hasn't been caught. I actually said that to that 19-year-old today, and she was like laughing because girls know this. So revel in it, be the outlaw, don't give a fuck. Right, that would have been a much shorter podcast if I just said that. So there you go.